Now I'm gonna cry again, and I want y'all to say, what's wrong, JJ? All right, y'all got that? Kelly took my girlfriend.
Yeah, what's up, y'all? I'm JJ Lewis, and I play Peanut, Brotherly Love, yeah.
There are names that once burned bright, only to vanish as if they never existed. Lil JJ is one of them. Do you remember an 11-year-old boy from Little Rock stepped onto the BET stage and stunned America? Even the most seasoned comedians were impressed, while all of Hollywood hailed him as a child comedy prodigy. But then, in 2008, right at the peak of his career with his own sitcom, Lil JJ suddenly disappeared. No explanation, no follow-up opportunities. Whispers spread that Lil JJ had collided with Hollywood's harsh unwritten rules, where child stars had only two choices: either obey quietly or be discarded without mercy. Lil JJ chose the second path, and the price was his entire career. More than a decade later, when the name Lil JJ was nearly forgotten, the documentary Quiet on Set exploded like a bomb, exposing the dirtiest, darkest corners that made the world shudder. Lil JJ returned to break the silence. The boy once hailed as the future of American comedy. What did he go through in the shadows? And what secrets buried his rising career? October 31st, 1990. Halloween night in Little Rock, Arkansas. While children were knocking on doors for candy inside a modest home in a working-class neighborhood, James Charles Lewis III was born. James's father was a blue-collar worker, his mother a devoted woman. In a family of 4 siblings, James was the eldest, carrying the responsibility of setting an example. He was also the hope that the family could escape the struggles of life in a small city like Little Rock. From an early age, he showed a gift for making people laugh. Not the silly kind of teasing, but clever jokes sharp enough to make adults laugh out loud. At 8 years old, James began performing at church events, community fairs, and family gatherings. At school, he stood out even more. By 4th grade, James was already called the class clown. His wit was so quick and refined that even teachers silently acknowledged it. News of the elementary school kid performing like a veteran comedian spread across Little Rock. Comedy clubs began inviting James. His parents were hesitant at first, but they couldn't resist his burning passion. At just 10 years old, James performed before an audience of 200 adults and had the entire room on its feet with 5 minutes of non-stop applause. But Little Rock was just a small pond. James needed a much bigger ocean. And that opportunity arrived in 2003. Bet's Coming to the Stage, the launchpad that turned a Little Rock kid into a national sensation. In 2003, James entered the nationwide competition Bet's Coming to the Stage. There, the youngest talents would go head-to-head with seasoned veterans, and only one could walk away with the title of America's next big phenomenon. Lil JJ's audition was nothing flashy. It was filmed in his family's small house. No props, no professional coaching, just a boy with raw talent. Then one Tuesday afternoon, the phone rang. Bet wants Lil JJ to fly to Los Angeles. For a working-class family in Arkansas, this wasn't just good news. It was a do-or-die challenge. They emptied their savings, maxed out their credit cards. His parents bet everything on that trip a gamble where the prize could change their son's life forever. Backstage that day, Lil JJ was only 11, standing next to grown comedians with decades of experience. A child should have been trembling, shrinking in the corner, but not him. He stepped onto the stage with excitement, and then the whole room exploded. "I'm Kelly. I brought my girlfriend with me tonight." That cheeky opening line had the crowd in stitches. Lil JJ crushed every opponent. The judges announced him as the winner. A boy from Arkansas had suddenly become a national sensation. The family's phone never stopped ringing. Invitations, contracts, flights poured in. Hollywood had spotted the rough diamond they craved. Next up, a kid with some big jokes. Please welcome Lil JJ. 12 years old. I'm Lil JJ from Little Rock, Arkansas. And I think I'm going to win, because I'm the hardest working kid in this business. America's child comedy prodigy continues to shine. In 2004, the family made the bold decision to leave Arkansas for Los Angeles. From a quiet, small town, they stepped into a ruthless arena where everything was expensive, and the rules of the game were full of traps. While his parents struggled with the overwhelming costs, Lil JJ threw himself straight into brutal casting calls. Then, in 2005, he did the unthinkable, beating out dozens of hopefuls to land a spot on All That Nickelodeon's hit show. Week after week, millions of Americans tuned in to see a brown-skinned boy with a radiant face delivering punchlines in the iconic Vital Information segment. Nickelodeon executives quickly realized they had found their new golden goose. They decided to take a gamble on something unprecedented, giving a 16-year-old his very own sitcom. On January 7, 2007, Just Jordan premiered. The story followed a boy from Arkansas who moves to Los Angeles to live with his grandfather while working at the family diner, a storyline directly inspired by Lil JJ's real journey. Audiences embraced it. The pilot episode drew more than 3 million viewers, an impressive number for a brand new sitcom. According to multiple entertainment reports at the time, Lil JJ was earning around $10,000 to $15,000 per episode. With 29 episodes across 2 seasons, he pocketed several $100,000, a staggering sum for a 16 or 17-year-old. Season 2 premiered in September 2007, maintaining steady ratings and earning even more praise. The press hailed Lil JJ as Nickelodeon's teen star to watch. From a promising child talent, Lil JJ skyrocketed into Nickelodeon's brightest young face. At just 16, he wasn't only an actor, he had become a symbol of the dream shared by millions of American teenagers. But Hollywood is never predictable, and soon tragedy would strike in a way no one expected. The fatal fall, when the writers' strike buried a rising star. At the end of 2007, Hollywood was shaken by an unprecedented crisis, a nationwide writers' strike. On November 5, 2007, more than 12,000 members of the Writers Guild of America (WGA) took to the streets. The reason studios and television networks were making massive profits from DVDs and streaming content, while the very writers who created the story's dialogue and characters were receiving almost nothing from that revenue. On one side were billion-dollar media corporations. On the other, the writers barely scraping by on modest paychecks. The conflict dragged on, negotiations collapsed, and then pens dropped, scripts stopped. The result was paralysis across the entire American entertainment industry. From talk shows, TV dramas, sitcoms to blockbuster films, everything froze. Cameras stopped rolling. Studio lights went dark. Actors who were once drowning in packed schedules suddenly sat idle, waiting in vain. For powerhouse series with loyal fan bases like Grey's Anatomy or The Office, the strike was just a temporary stumble. They had the strength to endure and wait for the comeback. But for a young show like Just Jordan, the strike was nothing short of a death sentence. Just Jordan, the unexpected casualty. At that time, Just Jordan was peaking. Season 2 had just kicked off. Ratings were steady, audiences were hooked. But when the strike hit, dragging on for 100 days from November 5, 2007 to February 12, 2008, the unfinished scripts for Just Jordan were never completed. No new episodes, storylines left hanging. A sitcom at its prime was suddenly cut short. During that period, viewers easily lured into other new shows began to drift away. The kids who once tuned in every week to watch Just Jordan started switching channels. Ratings plummeted, and in the ruthless world of television, ratings are survival itself. When the numbers drop, it's nothing less than a death knell. By August 2008, Nickelodeon had no choice but to make a cold decision. Just Jordan was officially canceled after 29 episodes. On August 23, 2008, the final episode aired. No farewell special, no big tribute. No one realized it was the end. And Lil JJ, the boy once celebrated as the future of American comedy, suddenly found himself in a terrifying void. No projects, no contracts, no doors opening. The bitterness stung even more in comparison to his peers. At just 18, JJ was too old for child roles, too young for adult ones. Meanwhile, a wave of other Nickelodeon stars soared. iCarly, with Miranda Cosgrove, launched in 2007, was barely affected by the strike and quickly became a teen juggernaut, surviving for multiple seasons. Over at Disney, Hannah Montana turned into a global phenomenon, propelling Miley Cyrus into international superstardom. Meanwhile, Just Jordan, once considered Nickelodeon's ace card, died prematurely, dragging Lil JJ's career down into the abyss. The tragedy was that Just Jordan didn't fail because of poor quality, or because audiences turned away. It was crushed under Hollywood's ruthless machinery. A sitcom at its height, a young star on the rise, both erased by nothing more than a strike. At 18, when many of his peers were just starting college, Lil JJ had already tasted the harshest truth of Hollywood. Just one event beyond your control, and an entire career can collapse in an instant. But the tragedy did not end there. For more than a decade, Lil JJ had almost disappeared from the spotlight, until 2024, when a documentary exploded exposing the dark side of children's television. And in that moment, the name Lil JJ suddenly resurfaced. Quiet on Set blows up in 2024. Lil JJ breaks the silence. On March 17, 2024, Investigation Discovery released the documentary series Quiet on Set: The Dark Side of Kids TV. Within just 10 days, Quiet on Set reached 16 million views, becoming the most watched unscripted docuseries on the Max platform since its launch. The media described it as an earthquake that shook the childhoods of an entire generation. Because this wasn't just a behind-the-scenes story, it ripped away the curtain covering Nickelodeon's darkness, a place once considered the childhood paradise of millions of viewers in the 1990s and 2000s. Audiences who once tuned in to laugh at all that lived through Zoey 101 or eagerly await iCarly were stunned to learn that behind it all was a system of immense pressure, toxic environments, and unbelievable hidden rules. Confessions that sent chills across America. One of the most shocking moments was the testimony of Drake Bellstar of Drake and Josh in Quiet on Set. Bell revealed for the first time that at just 15 years old, he was drawn into an inappropriate relationship with Nickelodeon dialogue coach Brian Peck. Peck had exploited their closeness to cross boundaries Bell never wanted. Bell said Brian and I became really close because we had a lot of the same interests, which looking back, I think that was probably a little calculated. I was 15. That statement sent chills down viewers' spines. A once-praised mentor-student bond was exposed as something deeply disturbing. And the horror didn't end there. Peck had already been arrested in 2003, pleaded guilty to several charges, and served prison time. This revelation ignited fierce debate. How many other child stars had been caught in similar situations? How many paid the price for the spotlight? As public outrage grew, all eyes turned to Dan Schneider, the powerhouse behind legendary shows like All That, iCarly, Zoey 101, and Victorious. Under immense pressure, Schneider was forced to respond. He posted a nearly 20-minute video admitting the writers' rooms had been tense, that he'd made unusual demands of young staffers, and that there had been inappropriate jokes that made it to air on Nickelodeon. Schneider openly said, "I definitely owe some people a pretty strong apology." He also admitted that if he could go back, he would have cut or rewritten many of the scenes from old shows. "I would have edited those jokes or cut them altogether. I wish I had." It was one of the rare times a TV mogul had publicly apologized to both his audience and his colleagues. But for many, the apology came far too late, only reinforcing the belief that behind Nickelodeon's glittering legacy lay a system that allowed the childhoods of countless young stars to be tarnished by negligence and unchecked power. In the middle of this storm, names of Nickelodeon alumni flooded back into conversation. Amanda Bynes, Jeanette McCurdy, Jamie Lynn Spears, and then one name unexpectedly resurfaced: Lil JJ. Fans swarmed social media. Why did he disappear? Was Lil JJ a victim too? Was his sudden disappearance in 2008 connected to Hollywood's hidden rules? The name thought to be forgotten since 2008 re-emerged like a ghost of childhood rising in the eye of the storm. The crushing pressure now weighed on JJ. After more than a decade of silence, the world was waiting for his confession. 8 words that shook Hollywood. And then on March 20th, 2024, after 16 years of silence, Lil JJ suddenly broke through the darkness. On his personal Facebook, he posted a short status, just 8 words. "Just Jordan got canceled. I ain't giving up no AA." At first glance, it seemed like nothing more than a crude joke. But for those who had followed JJ's career, the message cut like a knife. Lil JJ was making it clear that his career had been derailed purely by industry forces. Just Jordan was cut short for one obvious reason. The 2007-2008 writers' strike had stalled. The show ratings plunged and Nickelodeon lost interest. There was no deal. No hidden scandal, as rumors had suggested. He refused to let people force the narrative that every Nickelodeon child star was a victim onto him. JJ wanted to separate his fate from that mold. Most importantly, it was a statement that his disappearance wasn't the result of some personal downfall, but something else. He refused to bow to Hollywood's rules. JJ had been known for tweaking scripts, adding ideas, suggesting improvements. In stand-up comedy, that was called creativity. In children's television, it was labeled uncontrollable. And in a system that preferred obedient stars, that independence became a death sentence for his career. A decade of silence, a bombshell documentary, and 8 words that sliced through Hollywood's glittering mask. Lil JJ did not return to chase blockbuster roles. He came back to reclaim his own story. I'm not a victim. I just refuse to be a puppet. And that was the ultimate twist, the darkest secret in the story of the boy once hailed as the future of American comedy. After stepping away from the spotlight, aren't you curious what Lil JJ's life looks like now? When the lights went out. Lil JJ's life. After Just Jordan in 2008. When Just Jordan was canceled, Lil JJ was only 18 years old. Instead of breaking into films or landing another sitcom, he fell into a cold, empty silence. The phone in the Lewis household, once ringing non-stop, went dead. Casting directors no longer sent scripts. Producers who had once traveled all the way to Arkansas to chase down the child comedy prodigy now acted as if Lil JJ never existed. And then the rumors began to spread throughout the industry. He's hard to work with, too old for kids' roles, too young to play an adult. He argues too much, always wants to change the lines. In Hollywood, such whispers are more poisonous than any scandal. Once you're branded difficult, your path is nearly over. But the truth was different. JJ wasn't arrogant or disruptive. He simply had the habit of offering ideas, adding to his character, or tweaking dialogue to make it more natural. On the stand-up stage, that kind of quick thinking was considered talent. In children's television, it was seen as overstepping. Hollywood loved obedient child stars, easy to manage, easy to control. Lil JJ was the opposite, too independent, too creative, unwilling to be a puppet. The result, he was cast aside. The irony was that while JJ fell silent and disappeared, many of his Nickelodeon peers stayed in the headlines, but only because of scandals. Amanda Bynes, once the princess of Nickelodeon, spiraled into mental health struggles, substance abuse, and a string of shocking public incidents. Jeanette McCurdy iCarly later wrote the best-selling memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, exposing the dark side of Nickelodeon and the tragedies of her childhood. Jamie Lynn Spears. Zoe 101 saw her career collapse overnight after a teen pregnancy scandal at the height of her fame. While everyone else's lives unraveled in chaos, Lil JJ chose a different path. He left the glamour of California and returned to his hometown of Arkansas to live a new chapter. Some saw it as giving up, but for him, it was the way to stay sane. He enrolled at Arkansas Baptist College, choosing the life of a student instead of chasing a spotlight that had already dimmed. On campus, JJ was no longer the child comedy prodigy, but James Charles Lewis III, just another student sitting in lectures, writing essays, and taking exams like everyone else. He joined the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, where he found brotherhood support and a community that gave him a sense of belonging. For the first time in years, JJ was able to live like a young man, free from the crushing weight of millions of eyes watching his every move. Even after leaving Hollywood, JJ held on to his passion for comedy. He made small appearances on shows like Wild 'N Out and performed stand-up in local clubs. But it was all just a shadow of the past. No more millions of viewers on television, no more starring roles. For more than a decade after Just Jordan ended, Lil JJ lived quietly. In a world where the media thrives on scandal, silence meant disappearance. But for JJ, silence was a choice. Instead of collapsing in bitterness, he chose to study to build a private life and to rediscover himself outside the spotlight. That didn't mean JJ completely disappeared. After Nickelodeon, he continued to show up in other projects, just not in ways the mainstream audience often noticed. The uneasy comeback of Lil JJ after Hollywood forgot him. JJ made guest appearances in several popular teen series, from Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide to Lincoln Heights and The Secret Life of the American Teenager. These were short supporting roles, but they helped JJ stay connected to audiences during the time when the Just Jordan name was beginning to fade. Wild 'N Out, returning to his comic roots. If Nickelodeon was the stage of his childhood, then Wild 'N Out on MTV was where JJ returned to his true essence, an independent comedian, quick-witted and explosive in freestyle. Appearing in multiple seasons alongside Nick Cannon, JJ proved that he still had the comedic spark, the ability to make audiences laugh with his sharp improvisation. Brotherly Love, 2015, a step back into film. In 2015, Lil JJ made a surprise appearance in Brotherly Love, an urban drama directed by Jamal Hill. The project gathered big young names from hip-hop and R&B culture, including Keke Palmer, Corey Hardrict, Romeo Miller, Lil Romeo, and Quincy Brown. Lil JJ played Peace, a light-hearted comic relief character who brought moments of levity to a film otherwise filled with tension. Though not a lead, his role in Brotherly Love was notable. After years of staying quiet with TV guest spots, JJ returned to the big screen alongside rising stars. It was a reminder that he was still here, still playing the game, just no longer at the center stage. Beyond Brotherly Love, JJ also appeared in various TV projects: Brothers and Sisters ABC, the talk show Chelsea, lately TNT's Men of a Certain Age, and even popped up in Everybody Hates Chris. These roles were usually one-off or short appearances, but they signaled his ongoing desire to remain part of the screen. Notably, Lil JJ also showed up in several music videos from Young Guns to Chris Brown and Nelly. These cameos may have been fleeting, but they reinforced his ties to the hip-hop community, where JJ was still seen as one of the brothers, not just a forgotten star. A career that didn't disappear, but moved to the background. Looking back, Lil JJ's filmography after Nickelodeon reads more like a string of keep-the-fire-burning roles rather than major breakthroughs. At one point, he had the potential to become another Will Smith, a black child star who could rise to the A-list. But instead of that path, JJ chose a quieter survival, supporting roles, cameos, small comedy stages. Audiences came to understand that JJ had accepted a reality Hollywood can strip away your spotlight at any moment. And if you refuse to play by its rules, you're left with the smaller roles that let you simply keep your presence alive. As time passed, fans who once called him Lil JJ, the little kid, the child prodigy, grew used to a new name, Big JJ, a nickname that reflected both his growth and the long journey of stepping out of his childhood shadow. On Instagram, JJ updates regularly his stand-up tour schedule, behind-the-scenes clips, everyday life moments. No longer a child star crushed by the weight of millions of eyes, JJ now seems at ease, sharing simple smiles, brotherhood moments with his fraternity, and the joy of returning to the microphone. More than a decade later, JJ is no longer an A-list star, but neither is he a victim. He is a man who chose silence over scandal, his own path instead of chasing faded fame. Lil JJ chose to step back into the shadows, and it is precisely that silence that has made his private life more intriguing than ever. Private life, absolute mystery. For nearly 2 decades, JJ has never publicly revealed any romantic relationships. No news of a wife, children, or even a girlfriend. The American press has tried to dig but found nothing. Even on his personal social media, JJ carefully avoids any mention of love or family. This turned his private life into a mystery and made audiences even more curious. In a world where almost every former Nickelodeon star has had their complicated personal life, exposed JJ's silence became his difference. His disappearance sparked speculation. Does he secretly have a family? Or has he chosen to stay single to focus on his comedy? Nobody knows for sure. The only thing clear is this: JJ protects his private life even more fiercely than his fame. Net worth, numbers in the dark back. When Just Jordan was still airing, Lil JJ earned not only from Nickelodeon, but also from stand-up shows, endorsement deals, and guest appearances. For a teenager of 16, that was a fortune. Unofficial net worth sites list wildly different numbers. Some estimate around $500,000, others say $1, $3 million. But none of these figures have ever been verified. JJ himself has never disclosed the truth. This creates an ironic paradox. Even though he was once one of Nickelodeon's brightest young faces, JJ's fortune remains a mystery. People can speculate, but no one can be sure. And perhaps that ambiguity itself makes his story feel even more enigmatic. Scandals and controversies. A clean slate. Audiences have grown used to seeing former Nickelodeon stars engulfed in scandals. Amanda Bynes with shocking public breakdowns. Jamie Lynn Spears with her teen pregnancy scandal. Jeanette McCurdy with her heartbreaking memoir. But Lil JJ, no drugs, no arrests, no explosive tabloid headlines. The only thing that brought his name back into the headlines was that March 2024 Facebook status, "Just Jordan got canceled. I ain't giving up no A." Controversial as it was, this remains the only public scandal attached to Lil JJ in more than 20 years of his career. And it wasn't born from a mistake, but from a sentence that ignited debate. Lil JJ never left behind an Oscar, nor did he amass the lavish mansions of his peers. What he left instead was a different kind of legacy, one harder to measure, but heavier than any number the lesson of survival in Hollywood's minefield. The legacy and message of Lil JJ. In the memories of millions of viewers, Just Jordan remains one of the most authentic teen sitcoms ever made. It was a rare image of a young black boy given the lead role telling a story that was relatable, natural, neither sugar-coated nor stereotyped. Lil JJ, even with only 2 seasons on screen, contributed a lasting piece to Nickelodeon's cultural legacy. Every child deserves to see themselves represented on screen, and laughter can transcend barriers of race or age. Not everyone dares to walk away from the spotlight, but JJ did. He proved that sometimes stepping away from the stage isn't failure, but a way to preserve freedom and dignity. Old fans now call him by a new name, Big JJ. No longer the 11-year-old prodigy, but a grown man, mature, rooted in his community. He has become a symbol of a different kind of success, not measured by money or fame, but by resilience and the ability to take control of one's own life. One fan once commented under his stand-up video, "We grew up with Just Jordan. It's amazing to see him still on stage, even if he's no longer in Hollywood." Lil JJ's story stands as a reminder to the entire industry. Never forget that behind every television product are real children with real lives. Value creativity and independence instead of crushing them under hidden rules. If there is one greatest lesson Lil JJ leaves behind, it is this: Hollywood must change. And the voice of that child still echoes today. Lil JJ's legacy is not in awards or in scandals. It is the lesson of resilience, of choosing one's own path. And that is the true strength that ensures his name will never completely fade away.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.